Right now, inflation continues to be high, though gas prices have gone down quite a bit. And the news is that used cars and soon new cars will be easier to buy rather than almost impossible to find. But inflation for the normal ins and outs of life, food and clothes and all the normal things, kitty litter and all the kind of normal things that a person has to buy. I don't have any cats, but my sister does. She has one. But one thing that is very, very consistent right now with conservatives who are working to conserve things as they are because things as they are benefit them. They're working to make sure that any work that is done to deal with inflation will work under the auspices of trickle-down economics. This has been the system of conservatives and Republicans for time out of mind. Well, 35, 40 years anyway. The trickle-down economics has never worked. Why has it never worked? Because the assumption is that if you give a lot of money to people at the top who are already very wealthy, they will say, hey, I have too much money. I'm going to spend it on payroll, increased payroll and increased benefits. I'm going to make new products that are going to benefit people. The money will just rain down from on high. This ignores the greed of men, the churlishness of men. A person with $2 million will want 15, and a person with $200 million will want $1 billion, and a person with 30 billion will want 500 billion, and the 500 billion will want $1 trillion. There is no end to the greed of men and accruing benefit for themselves and securing themselves with power and money. What will a corporation do as you continue to pour out money to corporations through tax loopholes and tax benefits for them? They will spend that money in buying back their own stock, something that was illegal not terribly, terribly long ago, but is legal now. They will spend that money on giving funds to candidates who will do what they tell them to do, and politicians who will do what that corporation tells them to do, even so far as the corporation writing legislation and the politician bringing it onto the floor of the Senate or the House, not even changing any of the wording in it. It is exactly as the corporation gave it to them. There's one, so trickle-down economics has never, ever worked. The saying is, a rising tide lifts all boats. This is not so. A rising tide lifts those who have yachts. Everyone else drowns. The yacht is how many millions of dollars you have in the stock market. Then if the stock market goes up and you have, say, $200 million in the stock market, you really benefit from the rise in the stock market. But for the great majority of the country, what the stock market does has little or no influence on their quality of life. Now, we need to look at this from the opposite direction, from the depraved conservative side. What do conservatives consistently say? As soon as a progressive says, I've got an idea, let's interfere for good in the lives of people. What do you think? We could have legislative policy that makes people's lives better. What do you think about that? There are three responses to that. And they're it's pretty obvious that they are based in a bastardization of an evangelical and Puritan mindset from the beginning of the country, where where people really did believe that wealth meant the blessing of God. And have all religious leaders agreed all through time that wealth is not. It is more a corrosion of the soul than it is an indication that God is blessing this person. This is a great guy. So there's three responses. The first, pardon me, I got a cold in my head. The first is, we can't help people. We can't make people's lives better. Don't you know that these nasty people are going to game the system and find out ways to find loopholes to get more money? Ronald Reagan was kind of famous for saying, if you make people if you have people receive money based on how poverty-stricken they are, then they're going to get divorces so that they can become more poverty-stricken so that they can get more money. This is good Republican belief that people are depraved. Well, shoot. Republican politicians sure are. But normal people are just trying to make the ship go down the stream, just trying to get the basic needs that they have, just having enough gasoline so they can get to work and back each day. They are not attempting to game the system. All public assistance for the great majority of people is temporary, unless you're referring to Social Security disability, because of course Social Security disability is paid based on a person being permanently disabled. But when you leave Social Security disability out, things like food stamps, child support, things of that, not child support, food stamps, and the earned income credit and the per child tax credit and the additional per child tax credit, these things are around for a shorter time for a household, depending on when the children grow up, and also depending as they use those funds to better their situation. So that's the first thing. But another that the conservatives will often say, and this one is really screwy, and I've heard it more than you think, that, hey, people who are really destitute and poor, they like it that way. They want to live that way. People who are in prison, they like being in prison. They think it's fun. They like getting, a free place to sleep and free hot dogs and sauerkraut, and they like not having any cares in the world. They like being in prison. And poor people like being poor. That's why they stay poor. They're so lazy. They won't lift themselves by their bootstraps out of their poverty, when all of financial structure and policy of the country is made to benefit the wealthy and to take benefit away from people who do not have money. People who do not have money pay a much larger share of their income into Social Security than people who who earn $500,000 a year. Much more. And you can say, well, that's because of the way Social Security is structured. Exactly. Government spending is by its nature redistributive. It always is. You may say, I don't have any barges on the Ohio River. Why should my tax dollars have to pay for the locks on the Ohio River and the dams and the levees on the Ohio River? I don't live in these towns that get flooded. Why should I have to pay for this levee that keeps the town from being flooded? I want only money to be taken out of my paycheck that's going to benefit me. Why should I have to support the schools with my property taxes? I don't have any That's very, very conservative, very churlish, very selfish, very focused on oneself and one's own benefit rather than the benefit of the body at large. And there's one more way that conservatives respond to public policy that will do good. And that is that if we, this is a strange one, but you can see it all the time. If we make life harder for people that are poor, that will give them the motivation that they need to rise out of poverty and get a move on, so they'll stop being such lazy bums like we know they are. It's not the fact that they have terrible illnesses that keep them going to the hospital, or that their children have terrible illnesses that keep them at the doctor's office. It's not these things, it's just that they're lazy. And if we don't give them any help and don't give them any benefit, then they will be like the prodigal son who says, "Why should I be living in squalor? I will go and work hard." And anyway, this runs under the assumption that the reason the person is in poverty is because of their own fault. Every person living in poverty has a story of how they arrived there, and nobody wants to hear that story because it is scary in the extreme to recognize that that could be me, and that really could be any one of us.